We humans have spent our lifetime on this planet surviving the dangers of the natural world. However, mankind seems to have forgotten about nature's most present challenge, the weather. Even the slightest change to our everyday weather patterns pose serious threats to New Zealand society. Our lives are so dependent on these atmospheric systems, and yet we have little development in technologies that address its dangers. New Zealand needs to adopt current weather modification technologies and improve on them. We actually have quite a nifty little tool that can be used to modify weather to some extent called cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is the process of depositing powders onto a cloud layer for various effects. Reactions take place between powders and supercooled water molecules in the air, that is, water that exists in liquid form below its freezing point. Some methods freeze some of the water molecules, which allows other still liquid molecules to become heavy enough to fall as rain, while other powders can act as nuclei of water droplets. Essentially, if we have large enough clouds, we can create rain, snow, or hail. While the obvious use of this would be to create rain in arid regions for agricultural purposes, around the world we see creative uses to put snow on ski fields, to reduce fog at airports, and to reduce air pollution above our major cities, all through variations of this one simple practice. Cloud seeding is the example of weather modification done right, and proves that this is a field with potential benefits to any society that adopts its practices. And this is where New Zealand should step up. We are leading at the head of the pack globally in terms of atmospheric sciences, with little development into technologies that address its dangers, despite a global need for these technologies being ever present in our society. New Zealand specifically would benefit immensely from weather modification technologies. The economy of New Zealand relies heavily on our hydroelectric production and our primary industries, particularly agriculture and forestry. Droughts pose serious problems to this. According to Agricultural Minister David Carter, from spring 2007 to autumn 2008, drought cost New Zealand over $2.8 billion, which is a lot. Adopting weather modification technologies could minimize these dangers by increasing yearly rainfall and ensuring that the optimum conditions for plant growth and river volume are met. This would be beneficial to New Zealand's economy, but also have social benefits. By having an increased GDP, or gross domestic product, the standard of living for all New Zealanders would be raised. Weather modification could also have environmental benefits. By increasing yearly rainfall, we could be ensuring that the optimum conditions for growth are also met in our native flora, and thus increasing populations and preserving many of New Zealand's local ecosystems. New Zealand currently doesn't implement any weather modification technologies, but it should. Adopting current technologies would have great benefits to New Zealand economically and socially, but its use as a conservational tool also means we would reap environmental benefits. However, adopting current technologies is not enough. Cloud seeding is not a perfect practice. It needs improvements that we can provide. How do you cloud seed without clouds? Every time a hydrogen peroxide engine fires up, water is formed as a byproduct and ejected into the air, forming clouds. Now, in the future, this may be a viable way, in combination with cloud seeding, to modify weather. For instance, producing clouds, then producing rain. Also, currently, cloud seeding powders such as silver iodide can have negative environmental effects, but we can minimize this as well. If we switch to using dry ice and instantly collect carbon dioxide emissions using new carbon collecting technologies, such as the one featured above, then we could minimize these damages of emissions and minimize environmental dangers, and thus provide a safe, environmentally friendly way to modify the clouds. New Zealand can provide all of these improvements and more, pioneering this technology into the future. We are already global leaders in this field of atmospheric science, but by investing in this area, we could establish ourselves at the head of a global commercialized market. There is a worldwide need for weather modification, and by investing in it, we would reap further economic benefits to New Zealand. We also find ourselves faced with a humanitarian need. Storms were 3 of the top 10 most lethal natural disasters in recorded history, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. And this is a serious issue. Nations have a duty to protect their citizens, but we have almost no protection from one of nature's weapons of mass destruction. Advancement in weather modification technology could yield results. With more development in this field, powder compounds and dispersal techniques could be found that are able to withstand the impressive magnitude of tropical cyclones in ways that our current technology just can't. If New Zealand were to set its eyes in this field, then progress could be made to save lives and find safeguards against the $125 billion bill of Hurricane Katrina or the 375,000 people death toll of the 1970 Ebola cyclone. The world needs to advance in this field, and New Zealand could be the leader of the pack. We can do anything. The sky is our limit. New Zealand needs to take a step forward and delve deeper into the area of weather modification. Economically, we would be benefiting from an increased GDP and protecting our primary sector and hydroelectric production. Environmentally, we would be providing a safer environment for our native flora and protecting our local ecosystems from weather extremes. And socially, we would be benefiting from being able to prevent massive loss of life and destruction damage. Let us master the elements. We can't let nature rain on our parade.